trial against Sean Diddy Combs has moved into its seventh day of testimony. Today, the former personal assistant to Mr. Combs, David James, returned to the stand. Jurors also heard from the mother of singer Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend. He has pleaded not guilty to all of those charges. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Melas is outside of the courthouse in New York City. Chloe, walk us through what has happened in court so far today.
Yeah, so Ellison, you talked about David James. He is somebody who worked for 2 years for Combs as a personal assistant, and he really pulled back the curtain on what it's like to work for someone like Combs. He said that sometimes his days would be 20 hours at a time, and he would work 21 days in succession with no breaks. And he talked about how he knew that he was signing up for a tough job, but he also talked about how Combs allegedly had him.
Think about that, man. Working 20-hour days, 21 days straight with no break. Think about the stuff he has heard and seen. Think about all this is what I was talking about. This is what I've been waiting for. Because, you know, I know a lot of people are quiet because they probably were going to testify. And then there's people who are quiet because, you know, they try not to get on Diddy's bad side, allegedly. But this right here, I said bodyguards and drivers, and of course, personal assistants. These are the people who know the most, seen the most. Wow, that's, boy.
So have him get prescriptions under his own name.
Okay, so, sorry. I don't know if I can mention all the stuff he would get for Diddy, you know, stuff for Diddy to put in his body, but they were just saying that that's what he was doing. He was the one that was getting this stuff and saying that, you know, now they're getting into the racketeering and all that. Because people were like talking about Cassie saying all of this, yes, is DV, but this is not what he's on trial for. And hey, but wait, there's more. Now we starting to get into it. They said they were just laying the platform down.
Federal jurors in Manhattan have spent the past week hearing a parade of testimony that paints a startling contrast between Sean Diddy Combs' polished public persona as a self-made mogul and the hidden world his critics say enabled intimidation, controlled substances, and coercive relationships. The standout witness so far is former personal assistant David James, who alleges he worked 20-hour shifts, ferried unmarked pill bottles, one decorated with President Barack Obama's face, and stepped into exclusive adult gatherings where boundaries blurred and firearms were casually displayed.
But we had a lot of stuff today, Kim. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Diddy's former assistant was forced up there. We had Cassie's mom take the stand. The Punisher stepped up and got up in there. And then we had a HSI agent from National Security, Homeland Special Agent, who was responsible for the planning. And then we had a tease at the end, a big name coming tomorrow, it sounds like. Woo! All right, we're going to get through it all,
Potentially.
Kim.
We're going to get to it all.
It looks that way. What was your overall takeaway today on day 7?
Overall takeaway, I was surprised. First of all, I will say David James, the assistant, is hilarious. I think everybody was there were multiple notes of people laughing in the courtroom, which technically you shouldn't be doing, but I couldn't help myself either. I had moments where I was just laughing my head off at just some of the answers that he was giving. Of course, his cross-examination was done by Costco lawyer, as we lovingly call him, Mark Agnifilo, because of his baby oil jokes, or not jokes, but defense that was absolutely ridiculous. After that, we had Cassie's mom. Cassie's mom was not cross-examined. Diddy's team wouldn't do it, which I thought spoke volumes, and definitely learned something new of what she had to go through today. Then we had the Punisher, who was a worker that engaged in some of the FOs. Kind of contradicted himself more than once. Not good. And then we moved into the HSI agent, and this was the agent who was in charge of organizing the Miami raid, and he had kind of just gotten started when the day ended. So lots to go through.
Add photographic evidence from Cassie Ventura's mother, Homeland Security agents describing a raid on Diddy's Miami mansion, and word that Kid Cudi will testify next. And you have a courtroom drama whose ripple effects could reshape one of pop culture's most recognizable brands.
Previously, though, we noticed that some of his family wasn't in the galley. Well, now it turns out again, right? Diddy's sister was there, but his mom and sons were once again not present. Second day in a row. Take that as you will. But David James, his former assistant, came back on the stand as Kim was sitting up. He seemed a little sassy, Kim.
Very.
He did say he didn't witness any violence between Diddy and Cassie. However, he did see a blog post alleging that Combs was physical with Cassie at a club. Diddy searched James's computer history. James had been taking Cassie food at the London hotel that week, but he never saw her. Staff always answered the door. He said
a little suspicious.
Yeah.
Right? There's like this report that something's wrong, and then he's delivering food to her at a hotel and doesn't see her for a whole week.
Without a doubt, suspicious.
Yeah.
He then also spoke about this Louis Vuitton bag, regularly carrying $10K in cash, sometimes more. In the bag, there were 25 to 30 undisclosed pill bottles. These types you can see, along with Viagra and Tylenol, to increase manhood count, and water pills. He later added this one and other E's to the bag and saw
Perky and
Combs.
X.
Yes, X. There you go. He saw Combs taking them. James said he was reimbursed by Bad Boy for the expenses such as medicine and snacks, but for certain supplies such as baby oil, Astroglide, and protection, he was told to be reimbursed by Combs' security staff, who would pay him in cash out of Combs' LV bag. Now, I think this is key, right? This is part of the racketeering, the business empire, how he was constructing where money was coming from, cash money being spent, etc. He testified that Diddy requested him to bring an iPad to the hotel room that they were staying in. When no one answered, he walked into the room to deliver the items, and he saw Cassie in a hotel bed with a man he did not know in the room.
I have to correct myself. I think that was a typo. It technically was an iPod, I believe. I believe we are before the time of the iPad being super popular.
Music.
That was my mistake. But just to be, to
an
be
iPod, I remember
precise.
those. Before the phone and stuff, yeah. We had to carry our music around in a separate device. Now it's all in one.
Right.
Well, now he saw this other man in a hotel with Cassie, and he said the man was well endowed. Let's go look at that exchange. I'm curious.
It was kind of one of these things, like it was Inner City Press said it, and we kept waiting to hear. We're like, how many of these other outlets are going to say he was well endowed? We didn't hear it, but
5'8",
yes,
with long hair and a large endowment.
and he scurried away.
Did you ask anything? I wasn't hired to ask about their personal affairs.
No.
I love it's correct answer. Did you ever pick? They keep going. All right, well, there'll be some more. I want to go through some of these more sassy responses. Diddy was in the shower. Cassie didn't move. James said he never asked them about it because he did not have conversations with them about their personal affairs. And that's what the job description was. He also claims he was subjected to multiple lie detector tests conducted by former FBI agent due to missing items. He found the experience intimidating and recounted incidents where Combs security searched his belongings after expensive items went missing. Additionally, James revealed that Combs kept footage of him dancing while under the influence at a Diddy party. If I recall this, he said, I'm just going to keep that for later.
Just in case he ever needed something to have on him, he then had it. And that's just unsettling. So it kind of just shows again that this idea of him having something on people seems to be a pattern. And in the grand scheme of things, David did not work for Diddy for an extremely long time. It was about a year and a bit. So I do find it interesting that clearly he was looking for opportunities and he got one and he took it. So it kind of sucks. But again, this is also the New Year's Eve party that Cassie always really wanted to go to and apparently never got to because Kim Porter was there. So I understand it's like, okay, so the assistant gets to go, all these people get to go, but she doesn't. I get why it's frustrating.
Picture the courtroom frozen as a tiny prescription bottle. Each tablet stamped with President Obama's likeness hits the evidence table, and moments later, Diddy's composure cracks. That was the scene David James described when prosecutors asked him about the medication Combs allegedly carried everywhere.
The government says that Combs was running his businesses and carrying out illegal activity and using assistants, security guards, and other individuals that work for him to carry out that illegal activity. So he's one of many individuals that previously worked for Combs that we're going to be hearing from. And like you said, Who else did we hear from today? We finally heard from Cassie Ventura's mother. It was very brief on the stand, but she talked about taking photos of her daughter in 2011 when she came home to Connecticut for the Christmas holidays, and that she was shocked to see her daughter's body, that she hadn't been aware that her daughter's relationship with Combs had been violent at this point, and that she took those photos to memorialize them. And thankfully for her, she did, because they showed those in court today to the jurors.
Okay, again, just in case I had to trim out that Cassie's mother was talking about the photos she took revealing all the DV that went on with Diddy. She wanted to, take a photo and keep that for herself, as far as, like a day like this coming. She has those photos. As I said before, Cassie told the mother, and the mother knew about that stuff. She just didn't know about the pre-call. But again, I'm just saying this because it might have been chopped out in the video.
Chloe, explain for us how the prosecution plans to use these witnesses to build their case as it relates to the specific charges Diddy is facing here.
So remember, there are 5 charges, like I said, racketeering, conspiracy. So that's where you get the individuals that worked for Combs, whether it was security, personal assistants, chief of staff. We're going to be hearing from a chef who once worked for Combs. Then you have people like Cassie Ventura, you have her mother, you have individuals talking about coercion, force, feeling that there was so much violence in the relationship for some of these women that they couldn't leave, so therefore they were forced to participate in these freak-offs in charge. And remember, if convicted on all, he faces up to life in prison.
All right. NBC's Chloe Malas, thank you.
James testified that the bottle in question was never hidden. It traveled in full view like a fashion accessory, prompting gasps when he finally revealed the presidential motif in open court. He could not say whether the pills were prescription supplements or illicit party enhancers, only that the label was blank and the symbol unforgettable. Why Obama's face? Trial watchers speculate it signaled status, an inside joke among the elite circle, or perhaps was simply a novelty vendor's gag. Defense counsel seized on the ambiguity, arguing the account was anecdotal and unsupported by photos or receipts. Yet even a novelty pill bottle can speak volumes in a racketeering case. Jurors are asked to weigh symbolism and psychology as much as hard evidence. Legal analysts note that odd trophies have swayed verdicts before, think OJ, Simpson's Bruno Mali shoes, or Harvey Weinstein's casting couch diary, because they humanize abstract charges. James's allegation mushroomed online within hours. Obama pills trended on X. Late-night hosts mined it for punchlines, and meme pages remixed presidential campaign posters into fake pharmaceutical ads. PR experts warn that such viral ridicule is sticky, meaning it lingers long after a verdict. Even if Combs beats the charges, the image of a rap titan carrying cartoon-like Obama pills could follow him into boardrooms, sponsorship deals, and potential biopic negotiations. The prosecution's risk, however, is factual fragility. Without corroboration, the bottle remains testimony only, and defense lawyers hammered that point, coaxing James to admit that no one else had ever photographed the item.
I'm glad she said what she said, because that's what I've been talking about, and I was trying to get people to understand. I don't know if people are trolling or not, man, but this is what I'm talking about when you are putting fear into people's heart. Of course they're going to do whatever you say. So on the outside, it may look consensual, but it's not. These people, these women, and probably some guys too, basically scared for their lives. So again, his team is trying to say consensual when they're saying no. This is how you get into this stuff, is putting the fear in their heart. They can't leave because they scared what's going to happen. So now they're going to do whatever he's asking, to stay alive, to keep their careers, whatever the case may be. Because like I said, these people were promised things, and then I can take it away from you just like that. I was looking at a comment here. Someone said, trying to figure out why a billionaire would want 20K chump change from the mom? And why would he give it back? Wait, what? 20K? He gave it back because he realized it was a criminal offense? What is that about? Hold on. 20K? I'm trying to look that up. See what this is about. Cassie mother says Sean Diddy Combs demanded $20,000 because her daughter was seeing someone else. Oh, that's what the David James testified? Wait, David James, former assistant Sean Diddy Combs testified. No. Wait, hold on. No, they said I'm sorry, it was just a picture of the David James dude. Okay, hold on. An angry Sean Diddy Combs demanded $20,000 from Cassandra, Cassie Ventura's mother, and threatened to release explicit tapes of his longtime girlfriend after learning she was dating someone else. The mother testified Tuesday at the Hip Hop Mogul's trial. Regina Ventura said she felt physically sick when her daughter sent her an email in late 2011 to say Combs threatened to release videos of her and send someone to hurt her and the man she was seeing, the rapper Kid Cudi. Wow. I didn't understand a lot of it. The tapes threw me off, Ventura told Manhattan Federal Court. Ventura of New London, Connecticut said she then received a demand from Combs for $20,000. He was angry that he spent money on her and she went with another person, she said. Cudi, whose real name is Scott Muscudi, I can't pronounce that, sorry. Oh, snap! He's gonna testify Thursday, Kid Cudi? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Diddy's legacy.
Still, veteran litigators say a single vivid detail can establish tone like setting a thriller in a thunderstorm, even if the storm itself is never proven. In that sense, the Obama face tablets have already served their purpose. They frame Diddy as a man of eccentric appetites whose private life may be far stranger than fans imagined. Imagine clocking 20-hour shifts for 21 consecutive days, your phone buzzing at 4 a.m. because the boss wants fresh neon lights for a penthouse party, and clocking out isn't an option. That, according to David James, was the reality of serving as Combs' personal aide from 2008 to 2010. On the witness stand, he outlined a schedule so punishing it bordered on physical exhaustion. Chauffeurs on standby at dawn, culinary orders at noon, stylist runs before sunset, and after-hours room resets that often lasted until sunrise. Long days alone don't equal misconduct, but prosecutors argue the brutal tempo is evidence of a climate of coercion, employees too tired or frightened of retaliation to refuse questionable tasks. James's account dovetails with another assistant, George Kaplan, who separately testified he was hired to clean up suites after intimate marathons, collecting empty champagne magnums, baby oil bottles, and discarded paraphernalia before the housekeeping staff arrived. Labor law specialists note that New York's maximum hours rules exempt domestic staff from overtime caps in certain circumstances, yet the optics are grim when a billionaire appears to run his household like a 19th century steel mill. In the age of Me Too, many jurors reflexively empathize with subordinates because power imbalance feels relatable. Almost everyone has endured a toxic boss. Defense attorneys counter that show business is high pressure by nature. Political campaign aides, film crews, even emergency room doctors pull similar hours. They produce payroll records showing James earned six-figure compensation, plus per diems and hotel upgrades. But the prosecution quickly reminded jurors that golden handcuffs are still handcuffs if the wearer can't walk away without fear. When cross-examined, James recounted being subjected to multiple polygraph screenings every time luxury items went missing, describing the tests as psychological shackles. Subtext matters. A jury hearing about 20-hour shifts may feel subtle moral outrage. Add polygraphs and it shades into emotional captivity. That emotional layering is crucial when the prosecution must prove not merely bad manners, but a pattern of intimidation integral to an alleged criminal organization. Visualize a monogrammed Louis Vuitton carry, always within arm's reach, routinely packed with 10, 0 in cash, and as many as 30 unmarked pill bottles. Your job is to restock it, no questions asked. James testified that refilling the bag was a near daily ritual. He'd visit pharmacies under his own name, creating what prosecutors labeled a buffer of plausible deniability, and submit receipts to Combs' security detail, who reimbursed him in loose bills from that same LV pouch. Financial crime experts see potential structuring. Repeated cash purchases can mask spending patterns and dodge electronic audit trails. The government seeks to tie these errands to its racketeering conspiracy count by arguing that Combs used employees as unwitting cogs in a supply chain that facilitated controlled substances and hush money payouts. One agent from Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, testified that organic nitrous oxide canisters, MDMA tablets, and bottles marked Herbal Fertility Booster were seized during the raid on Combs' Miami estate, reinforcing James' description of eclectic pharmaceuticals. Defense lawyers replied that celebrities often keep cash for tips, emergencies, or high-stakes poker nights, and that supplements such as fertility boosters are legal over-the-counter products. But jurors also saw ledger notes, handwritten IOUs between security staff documenting reimbursements for baby oil, personal lubricant, and prophylactics earmarked for VIP room setup. Prosecutors argue that such mixed-use spending, medical, party props, adult supplies, suggests money laundering of operational costs for off-the-books gatherings. A forensic accountant told the court that regular ATM withdrawals synced precisely with private jet flight logs, an alleged pattern indicating cash traveled wherever the entourage traveled, shielding purchases from corporate credit card statements. Whether that nexus proves conspiracy or mere lavish lifestyle is a call the jury must soon make. Either way, the LV bag has become a metonym for mobility, secrecy, and spur-of-the-moment indulgence, a rolling vending machine, as one commentator quipped. Now drop into a penthouse after midnight. The lights are low, the guest list A-list, and you've been ordered to watch the door and sometimes the bed sheets to keep the night under control. David James labeled these events freak-off parties, though prosecutors and journalists prefer the euphemism exclusive adult gatherings. He testified they featured curated playlists, fragrance diffusers, themed attire, and an ever-present surveillance camera, all orchestrated, he claimed, to create an atmosphere where no rarely felt like a safe option. James described his duties as a mix of concierge and enforcer, stocking hydration stations with alkaline water, handing out luxury robes, then standing outside doors to ensure noise didn't leak into hallways. The most disquieting task, he said, was monitoring intimate interactions to verify everyone stayed compliant with Combs' rules. It was an assignment, he said, blurred his boundaries and undercut any sense of professional dignity. Trauma psychologists filed amicus briefs earlier in the case, predicting that testimony would expose a cycle of social pressure. Once an entourage normalizes voyeurism, newcomers feel coerced to participate. James echoed that theme, telling jurors he witnessed newcomers freeze under peer pressure, then comply. He feared that dissent, like refusing to fetch additional supplies, could trigger verbal lashings or abrupt termination. Indeed, he claims Combs once humiliated him publicly after a belligerent guest had to be escorted out, blaming James for the fiasco. Defense counsel counter-programmed by presenting clips from Combs' white party charity galas, arguing that lavish themes and lingerie dress codes are hardly unique in entertainment. Yet prosecutors project these gatherings as operational nodes of coercion, where the LV cash funded substances, the Obama pills surfaced, and private footage was allegedly recorded for future leverage. Without direct victim testimony, Cassie Ventura's statements are partly sealed, and the parties remain a tapestry of innuendo. But for a jury steeped in tabloid culture, adult gathering is already a byword for scandal. Envision walking into a plush den to drop off a phone charger and spotting a loaded handgun resting beside a crystal ashtray, no holster, no lockbox, just raw intimidation by decor. James told jurors he saw weapons displayed openly during private get-togethers, instilling a sense of ever-present danger. In a separate incident from 2008, he claimed Combs packed 3 handguns before ordering a driver to pursue rival producer Suge Knight, an episode that convinced James to resign months later. Federal law does not bar licensed individuals from house-carrying firearms, but prosecutors argue the weapons serve as psychological muscle, reinforcing the power dynamic that underpins their racketeering theory. Homeland Security agent Gerard Gannon described courtroom-shown photos of AR-15 parts, ammo boxes, and XS-size stilettos seized during the Miami raid, images jurors could not ignore for their juxtaposition of glamour and menace. Defense attorneys insisted that many high-profile figures travel with security details who handle weapons as a routine, noting that no discharge incident or assault charge has arisen from those particular guns. Still, jurors heard James recall nights he lay awake in hotel corridors, fearing a misfire could end more than a music career. Firearms thus join pill bottles and cash bags as visual shorthand, tokens of control in a world where charisma alone is not enough. Legal observers point out that racketeering cases often hinge on pattern evidence. Even if guns were never brandished, their omnipresence can establish a climate of enforced compliance. The question is whether the jury interprets that climate as criminal or merely reckless celebrity excess. Freeze frame Christmas 2011. A mother snaps photos of her daughter's bruised eye, fearing the marks will fade before the truth can be told. Regina Ventura testified she took those pictures when singer Cassie came home to Connecticut for the holidays, her face marred by swelling she allegedly tried to hide with makeup. Ventura said she saved the images for a day like this, and that day arrived when prosecutors displayed them on courtroom monitors, prompting audible gasps from journalists in the gallery. Although the pending criminal counts focus on racketeering and coercive intimacy, not bodily harm alone, prosecutors hope the photos illustrate a continuum of control, emotional, financial, and at times, physical. Defense attorneys responded by introducing affectionate text exchanges between Combs and Ventura, including a heart emoji message sent the day after one alleged assault, arguing that consensual relationships are complex and victims' motivations are nuanced. Domestic violence experts testified that victims often maintain contact with alleged abusers, especially when intertwined professionally or contractually, a phenomenon sometimes called trauma bonding. The jury's receptiveness to that explanation may determine whether Cassie's evidence becomes a smoking gun or an emotional footnote. For the larger public, the visual impact of bruised eye photographs cuts deeper than ledger sheets or pill bottles. News cycles favor imagery, and these photos may recalibrate the trial from lurid party tales to a darker narrative of harm, a shift that brand strategists say sponsors fear most. Think of an octopus whose tentacles include chauffeurs, chefs, security guards, and personal assistants, all allegedly orchestrated to source pills, stage hotel suites, and silence doubters. Prosecutors alleged that Combs managed an enterprise under the federal racketeering statute. Each employee, knowingly or not, served a criminal aim facilitating controlled substance access, arranging clandestine liaisons, and deterring dissent. Upcoming witnesses include an executive chef said to have prepared recovery meals for post-party VIPs, and a second assistant who claims he was tasked with shipping crates of nitrous oxide canisters labeled as restaurant supplies. HSI agent Gannon testified that his team found inventory spreadsheets referencing everything from amyl nitrate refills to designer candles. Ledgers prosecutors will present to show systematic provisioning. Defense counsel calls the charges an overreach, insisting staff merely executed hospitality duties typical of a touring entertainer's entourage. Yet legal scholars note that racketeering does not require unanimous employee awareness. A few bad act nodes can taint the whole network if the boss coordinates them. How jurors parse that nuance between chaotic celebrity excess and organized wrongdoing will be pivotal. Hold your breath as defense counsel leans in. Mr. James, can you produce a single photo of those Obama pills? Silence stretches so long you can feel the jury's collective pulse. The defense spent much of day 7 poking gaps in James's account. No surveillance footage, no pharmacy slips showing purchases of novelty, etched tablets, and not even a selfie capturing the infamous LV bag open on a limousine seat. They suggested James may hold grudges or seek a book deal, motivations that could color his recollections. To rehabilitate their witness, prosecutors highlighted lie detector tests James once faced when valuables disappeared, framing him as a victim rather than an opportunist. They also subpoenaed reimbursement memos and texts that reference pharmacy runs, bolstering his timeline, if not the pill's design. Legal analysts caution that juries often weigh demeanor over documentation. James has impressed some reporters as genuine, even funny, though others note occasional inconsistencies such as mixing up iPod with iPad, a slip the defense milked for credibility points. Still, one analyst pointed to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard saga as proof that narrative clarity, not raw documents, can steer public sympathies. Picture a multi-million-dollar vodka line, a fashion imprint, and a streaming platform all watching real-time charts of negative sentiment spike as Diddy trial memes flood TikTok. PR specialists say corporate partners may freeze campaigns rather than gamble on a verdict. Observers liken the dynamic to Kanye West's post-controversy collapse, where brand exits snowballed once early adopters cut ties. Thus far, no sponsor has publicly walked, but whispers of internal reviews have leaked to the trade press and investors. Social media analytics show that within 24 hours of the Obama pill testimony, searches for Diddy lawsuit eclipsed searches for his latest single, underscoring how scandals commandeer the attention economy. The memes themselves, Obamacare logos reimagined as pill stamps, may appear trivial, but digital culture scholars cite research that satire accelerates opinion formation, often locking in negative impressions before facts settle. For longtime fans, the hardest cognitive leap may be reconciling the motivational speaker Diddy, who coined "can't stop, won't stop," with the portrait of reckless indulgence emerging from the stand. If jurors convict, legacy comparisons to Michael Jackson's post-trial reputation or R. Kelly's downfall become inevitable. If acquitted, echoes could still hamper future ventures, because consumers often remember allegations longer than outcomes. Imagine tomorrow's headlines if rapper Kid Cudi confirms under oath that Diddy threatened him over a romantic link with Cassie, an allegation prosecutors say culminated in a torched convertible. Cudi is slated to testify by week's end, a development confirmed by both AP and PBS NewsHour. Prosecutors may use his account to show retaliatory behavior transcending workplace quarrels, thus cementing the pattern element required for racketeering. Closing arguments will likely pit two narratives: Combs the empire, builder, whose generosity spawned careers, versus Combs the puppeteer, who weaponized wealth, narcotics, and intimidation. Whichever story triumphs could redefine the music industry's tolerance for boundary-erasing party culture. Record labels facing their own Me Too reckonings may adopt stricter writer audits and third-party wellness checks, mirroring how Hollywood studios revamped intimacy coordinator protocols post-Weinstein. Cultural critics argue the trial is a bellwether, hip-hop's first megastar to stand federal trial on accusations, this broad potentially recasting a genre that once celebrated bad boy bravado. If jurors convict, liability nets may widen, pulling in other titans whose entourages run on unspoken codes. If they acquit, debate may shift to whether current law adequately polices celebrity ecosystems where social leverage can mimic force. For now, the judge has cautioned spectators against audible reactions, yet gasps, chuckles, and occasional tears keep punctuating proceedings. Outside, news vans line Pearl Street, and livestream commentators dissect every sidebar. Inside, one question echoes: will the verdict crown or crush a king of music? Stay tuned. This story is still writing itself, tablet by tablet, witness by witness, day by day.